Hello there and welcome back to Creative Autistic. Today I thought I'd talk about my experience of perimenopause as an autistic person because I think it can be really quite difficult for autistic people to go through this process, and it's only now I can look back and think, yeah, I can certainly see how my symptoms might have been exacerbated somewhat by being autistic. So I thought today I'd go through a list of symptoms of perimenopause, and there's 34 on this particular list, which I'll also link below, but there's absolutely loads of symptoms of perimenopause depending on, which list that you go by. So number one is hot flashes, and it's obviously at number one because it's the most well-known symptom of perimenopause. And for me, I have had some bouts of hot flashes, but I didn't actually find them too bothersome. And if I'm honest, I've always been a freezing cold kind of person, and it was, the one symptom that I actually didn't mind too much. But I know for some other women, symptoms can be really debilitating of hot flashes, and particularly for autistic women, sensory change, such as a dramatic change in temperature, can be, really quite overwhelming. So it's certainly one to, be aware of, really. Number two is night sweats. So basically, I started perimenopause when I was 40, and it started in the form of night sweats. So I get them actually quite frequently, and I'd wake up in the middle of the night just being completely drenched, which was, really strange. I've never been a particularly sweaty person. I don't get them too much now, and it's possibly because I'm on HRT these days, and I'll talk about HRT at the end of this video because I've, got quite a lot of relief from using HRT. Number three is irregular periods, and I'd say that's, pretty much a given, isn't it? One of the main aspects of menopause, and indeed the actual definition of menopause itself, means a kind of halt of periods. So yeah, that's certainly something that relates to me as well. Certainly before I was on HRT. Number four is mood changes, and gosh, that's, yeah, something I'd say I've certainly been through, and I'm sure my partner Ian would agree on that as well. Number five is breast soreness, and number six is decreased libido. Number seven is vaginal dryness, and yeah, certainly can relate to all three of those. Number eight is headaches, and yeah, I've certainly noticed an increase of headaches, and in particular, I'll get like a really intense kind of sinus headache on both sides in my temples, and it can be really painful. And I spend quite a lot of time, mostly in the evenings, kind of massaging that area, which is useful as a stim as well. Um, but yeah, it gets, quite intense sometimes. So yeah, that's certainly a tick from me. Now, number nine is recurring UTIs, and gosh, we get all the treats in menopause, don't we? I think it's actually related to a condition that I have called mast cell activation syndrome, which is a whole other video in itself. And basically, it's a multi-systemic illness, so it kind of, affects my whole body. And as part of that, I get something called interstitial cystitis, and it causes a lot of pain in my bladder, and it feels like it's vibrating sometimes. So it's obviously really kind of horrible. And when it's bad, it's kind of all I can think about, really. So yeah, that's certainly something that I can relate to. It's difficult to know if perimenopause kind of makes it worse, or whether it's kind of MCAS in itself, or a combination of the two, however. And number 10 is burning mouth, and I have huge issues with burning mouth, and I think it's to do with my MCAS condition, but I get a lot of burning mouth with food, and also environmental triggers such as smells and chemicals. I get a, a really burning mouth, and it's vile. I can assure you, it's yeah, one of the worst symptoms that I have. And again, is it caused by perimenopause, or is it worsened by perimenopause? I don't know. All I know is I don't like it. Number 11 is changes in taste, and yeah, I can relate to this. I found through my MCAS, I have to eat a really bland diet. So, things like really strong toothpastes or mouthwashes, I, really struggle with. They're just too much. And in fact, I ate a whole peppercorn the other day by accident. And gosh, yeah, I can really, really sense, big flavours like that in, yeah, quite a horrible way, really. Number 12 is fatigue. And yeah, I'd say this is a biggie for me. Come mid-afternoon, I'm completely knackered most days, and some days, I can hardly move at all. So yeah, definitely one for me. Number 13 is acne, and yeah, this is one that actually I've not experienced at all, I don't think. So maybe that's one I'll have to look out for at some point. Number 14 is other digestive changes, and I've had loads of issues with my gut since starting perimenopause, and I do have a history of IBS, however, but I'd say it's got significantly worse since starting perimenopause. I've huge issues with kind of, distended belly, constipation, bloating. Yeah, not nice, is it? So moving on, number 15 is joint pain. And number 16 is muscle tension and aches. And I've put those both together because I get all sorts of kind of chronic pain going on. I get a lot of pain in my kind of shoulders and upper back, um, my lower back sometimes as well. And yeah, I just get a lot of pain. Number 17 is electric shock sensations. And yeah, I've had these, and particularly around 5 years ago, I started getting all sorts of kind of horrible symptoms, which I was diagnosed with a condition called FND, or functional neurological disorder, at the time, because I was getting all sorts of chronic pain, including occipital neuralgia, which is horrible. It's like a nerve pain that goes up the nerve in your scalp and ends up in your eye. And I was getting electric shock pain through my body as well. I don't know if the FND diagnosis would still stand, or whether it all relates to the mast cell activation syndrome. I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever know, but yeah, I just get a lot of chronic pain. And number 18 is itchiness. And yeah, I get that. I get like itchy arms sometimes. And recently I've noticed my lower back is yeah, getting really itchy to the point where I need to kind of use a steroid cream on it sometimes. So yep, that's a yes from me. Number 19 is sleep disturbance. And yeah, that definitely relates to me. Before I started on HRT in particular, I was having some real issues with insomnia. So thankfully, it's not too bad now. Certainly, yeah, the HRT has helped with that. Number 20 is difficulty concentrating, and I've all sorts of issues with this now. Yeah, it's really difficult some days. I just feel like I'm, in a kind of huge fog, really. It's really horrible. So yeah, that's a yes from me. Number 21 is memory lapses, and I've always struggled with my memory. I know a lot of autistic people have really good long-term memory and not so good short-term memory, but for me, it's completely the other way around. My long-term memory is dreadful, and I can't remember huge segments of my life, but my short-term memory is pretty good, actually. Um, Ian will always ask me where he's left something, and 9 times out of 10 I can, yeah, find it for him. So Yeah, memory lapses relating to perimenopause though, I don't know. I don't know if it's got any worse or not. Number 22 is thinning hair, and yeah, I've noticed that. Basically, I've started noticing kind of thinning at the sides of my hair, which is, I think, where it kind of tends to go first. So it's not too bad at the moment, but you know, it might be something I'll need to keep my eye on. Number 23 is brittle nails, and I think my nails are pretty brittle anyway. I'm not so sure. I've had a long history of biting my nails, which I realise now is, you know, a stim, and I stopped biting them a few months ago, and now I find I kind of play with them instead. But yeah, they're pretty brittle, but it's hard for me to know if they're any more brittle than before, really. Number 24 is weight gain, and it's a tricky one because of my MCAS, I've had to eat a really limited diet. So at first, I lost quite a lot of weight. Since then, I've gained a stone back, but I'm finding more than weight gain itself that my body shape is changing. So you know, it feels kind of broader now, which you know is, yeah, doesn't feel very nice, if I'm honest. I've been so used to the same kind of form all my life, that it feels really weird not really knowing what kind of shape your body is anymore. Hopefully it's something I'll get used to, but yeah, I think I need to, you know, get fitter as well, really. So yeah, it's, yeah, something I've noticed. Number 25 is stress incontinence, and thankfully this isn't something that I've had, but you know, I know it's a common symptom of perimenopause, and it must be really distressing. Um, so you know, my heart goes out to those that experience that. Yeah, but thankfully, you know, for me, I've not had that as yet anyway. Number 26 is dizzy spells, and yeah, I certainly get these. I get vertigo, and it was certainly worse before I started on HRT. And I've also noticed that I feel a little bit dizzy getting out of beds recently, and I think it might be related to a condition called POTS, which is often comorbid with MCAS, and it's something that I'm sort of getting checked out at the moment, so it might well be related to that. Number 27 is allergies, and yeah, that certainly relates to me, and I imagine a lot of autistic people as well. I've really become so intolerant to a lot of food since my MCAS came about. So I eat around 20, 25 foods at the moment, and at its worst, I got down to 3 foods. So yeah, I'm hoping that I've started on some mast cell stabilizing medication recently, that it might allow me to eat a few more foods. But for me, you know, it's kind of impossible at the moment. So I get kind of burning tongue, the excitable neuralgia, nerve pain, all sorts of symptoms. It's really horrible. Number 28 is osteoporosis, and indeed, I was diagnosed with osteoporosis about a year ago, and yeah, I certainly wasn't expecting to get that diagnosis in my 40s, but there you go. I think thinning bones are a real issue for women in perimenopause and post-menopause, actually. So I've I use HRT, as obviously I've mentioned a few times now, and that can be really helpful with osteoporosis and bone thinning. So hopefully, you know, I'll be able to get a hold on it. But yeah, certainly a real issue for yeah, perimenopausal and postmenopausal women. Number 29 is irregular heartbeat, and yeah, I have palpitations all the time, and yeah, I don't know if it's related to perimenopause, MCAS, or POTS, or, you know, it's really difficult to know, isn't it, when you've got kind of a few things going on at one time, but certainly, yeah, it's a tick from me. Number 30 is tinnitus, and yeah, that's another tick from me. Um, It's quite strange actually, because my partner Ian gets tinnitus and he's had it for years, and he gets a constant, really high pitched noise going on in his ears, which, must be awful. But my experience of tinnitus is quite different in that I get a really sort of low David Lynchian kind of noise, and it sounds almost like a kind of whirring car engine noise, and it's really horrible. And I find that when I'm running low on kind of estrogen gel, that's yeah, that's the first symptom that comes about. So yeah, that's yeah, another one that I have. Number 31 is irritability, and I think that kind of ties in with mood swings, doesn't it? It's yeah, I get way more irritated these days than I used to. So yeah. Number 32 is depression, and number 33 is anxiety. And autistic people will deal with these quite commonly, really. And through the hormonal changes in perimenopause, it's something that you have to try and keep an eye on, really. I've certainly suffered bouts of both through the last 9 years I've been going through this process, and it feels like forever, to be honest. And yeah, I'd say yes to both of those for me. Number 34 is panic disorder, and for me, it's certainly never gone that far in terms of my anxiety. I've been able to keep a handle on it, really. But that must be awful for those that experience panic. It's something that I've had in earlier stages of my life. Panic attacks are just horrendous, aren't they? So yeah, that's just horrible. So there are all sorts of symptoms of perimenopause, and there's just another couple that I wanted to mention. And for me, loss of self is a big one, and it's really hard to try and explain what that means if you've not kind of gone through it. But for me, I kind of realise how hormones play such a big part in, our personalities, really. And, if your hormones are depleted, it almost feels like your whole kind of sense of self is depleted as well. So, yeah, I was going through, yeah, some real issues with that. And I still, don't feel like the same person that I was 10 years ago. Um, with similar people, obviously, but yeah, I think the hormonal change has brought about some changes in my sort of personality as well. Yeah, it's a difficult one. I think it's one of those that if you know, you know. And another one, which is a big one for me, is dry eyes and dry mouth. And yeah, I suffer both of those, particularly dry eye. I have that all the time, and I use eye drops a good few times in a day, and I'll have like a heated eye bag on my eyes a couple of times a day, and yeah, it's really horrible condition. And I've also had issues with dry mouth sporadically, and at one point my mouth was completely dry for a few days. It was so distressing, and as an autistic person, any kind of sensory issues like that or any kind of major changes is really horrible. And thankfully, I was able to deduce that by cutting out sugar in my diet, it really helped a lot. So yeah, that was yeah, really horrible. One thing I should point out about all of these symptoms is that for most of the symptoms, I don't have all of the symptoms all of the time. I tend to, have phases where a few of them will be pronounced and then they'll kind of fade back a bit, and others will come up to the surface. Although some of them, are there pretty consistently, like my burning mouth, etc. But, if you're still to go through perimenopause, it's, yeah, just be mindful that, you won't be hit with, 34 symptoms all at once. So they do tend to come and go. Hello, Editor Lizzie here. I realised that my video might be seen to be a bit gloom and doomy as I'm talking about my own personal experience of perimenopause. I just wanted to reassure you that while most people will have some symptoms of menopause, it's thought that 1 in 4 will experience severe symptoms, and some breeze through the menopause with hardly any symptoms at all, so you never know, you might well be one of them. So I just thought I'd talk in brief about how, now I know that I'm an autistic person, how that relates to my experience of perimenopause. And, I would say that routines have been a massive thing for me. I've always liked routines, I've always found comfort in them, but I've certainly found over the last few years that I've become way more rigid in my daily routines. And I find that if there's a slight change in my early morning routine in particular, like if I need to go for a doctor's appointment or something like that, it will throw me off for the entire day. I find it really difficult to get back into the kind of loop really of what I do every day. And it was one of the things actually that helped me really think about going for a diagnosis of autism, because it was becoming really quite consuming. And yeah, it still is really. I just find safety and comfort just in my daily routines. And also sensory issues have been really amplified for me, and in particular noise sensitivity. It's something I've always struggled with, but it's certainly heightened now, and any loud sudden noises in particular just scare the life out of me. And the noise in itself tends to be really painful, and it will stay in my head for a good few moments. I don't know if this is something that you experience too. Please let me know if it does, because it's just horrible. And also social stuff has become a complete nightmare. I've always used alcohol as a social lubricant, if you like, because I've just never been able to socialise without it. And because of all of my intolerances now, and I also have a gallbladder issue, I can't drink alcohol at all now. And the thought of socialising without alcohol, honestly just scares the life out of me. I just couldn't do it. So yeah, I think certainly those areas have really been heightened as a result of perimenopause. So I've tried to do just a cursory search for research on autistic people in perimenopause and menopause, and how they experience it. And surprise, surprise, there's hardly any out there. Most research has been conducted on men and children, and there's so little out there on women. So hopefully this is something that they'll catch up with very soon. And it's really obvious that autistic women are going to find huge challenges in having such huge hormonal changes going on. And it's really interesting that it's known now that some autistic people report that perimenopause symptoms have really played a role in them seeking a diagnosis for autism. And it did for me, and I'm sure there's loads of other women out there that are going to go through this process as well. The one thing that I did find, however, and it comes as no surprise whatsoever, that research shows that autistic women experienced higher menopausal symptoms. So there you go, in black and white. It's going to be really tough for a lot of autistic women. However, I don't want to take away from neurotypical women that are going through just horrendous time in perimenopause and post-menopause, because we know that 1 in 10 women will have to give up work because of the condition. It's horrendous. But I just wanted to highlight that autistic women may have additional challenges in going through perimenopause. So I'll speak just very quickly on HRT because I don't want the video to go on forever. But I use Sandrina estrogen gel, which I use every day, twice a day. I'll just pop a bit of gel on my leg and it goes in really easily. And I also take progesterone tablets, and I take them every night. And well, I say every night, I take 2 a night for 14 nights out of every 28. I'll perhaps make a separate video on HRT at some point because there's a lot of information to give, so let me know if that's something that you'll be interested in. So I hope you found today's video interesting, maybe a bit useful, who knows, but I'd love to hear your experience of perimenopause as well, if you're indeed in the process, or if you've yet to go through it and perhaps you've got some questions. Or if indeed you've been through the process, because that's still something that I'm yet to face, so I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts. I'll be back hopefully next week with another video. I'm still to think about which subject it will be. Maybe MCAS, maybe not, we'll see. But thanks ever so much for watching. Give it a like if you got this far, and I'll see you again soon.